Hi, in this video tutorial, I'm gonna share with you how I assemble a rose using the Petal template number 167. So we're making the large rose and let's see how big it would turn out later. So actually, what I love most about this Petal template is that yes, I'm gonna give you the template for the bud, but at the same time, the petal design itself is so nice and unique. You can even make different other flowers with different centers, not just the rose bud. So I lay it out, you know, I'm going to lay out two different ways. One would just be intended for the rose, and the other would just be intended for, I'm gonna give you the sizing on how you are going to make different kind of flower using the same petal with different center. So this one is A, B, C, D. This is for the rose and the bud. But when you are going to have a regular petal, which I'm also gonna provide the sizing, it's gonna come with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. There are two more smaller petals than this. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are going to make a large flower with different center, not the rose, you can use the 1, 2, 3, 4 petals. And if you are going to make medium, you are going to use 3, 4, 5. If you're going to make small, of course you're going to use the two smallest petal, which is the 5 and the 6. And when it comes to the base, when we intend to make a large flower, we are going to use the 5 inches round or the 5 inches hexagonal, whichever you prefer. But for me, I really prefer the round base. It looks cleaner and neater than the hexagon for me. The medium would use 4 inches and the small would use 3 inches. So 1 second, I'm gonna show you how I lay out this one. So in this rose, I'm using 18 sheets of cardstock and I lay it out already for you guys. So all you need to do is just to follow the sizing. So in the layout, I indicate component 1 or the 167A, 167B, 167C, and 167D. So on 167A, this is how it gonna looks like. Only one petal would really fit on 1A4. I tried my hardest, but really that's all we can fit in here. So since in every layer of the outer petal we need 6 petals, so we're going to use 6 sheets of this 167A. And I'm gonna do the same with the PDF so you can all follow through. So with the 167B, I have the B and the D put together and lay out this way. All you need to do is to follow the sizing. And we need 6 of each, so that's 12 total. And 167C, this is the letter C of the petal, which is the third petal, the same size. So we are only needing 3 that I put together. So we only need 3 sheets of this one, so that's 15. And this is the bud. I already lay out the bud like this. Again, like the only thing you need to do is to size it, and we need 12 pieces of this petal, so which means we need 3 sheets of this 167D. So that's how my 18 sheets turns out. So again, I laid it out in SVG for the Cricut users, and also I made it a point that I did an PNG file also for my Silhouette user. And also I'm gonna be providing, you know, PNG and SVG just for one template that you can size in 6 different ways, so you can make different flower using different center. By the way, this flower template also would come with a free flat center that you can also use. So let's start. First thing, I really wanted to start with the bud. So with roses, I wanted to start with a bud so that when we assemble it in our base, I know when am I going in or how I am going to approach, you know, moving inward. So let's start. First off, get the 4 pieces of cardstock, and actually let's get 6. This is a step that I thought before, you know, is optional, but you know what, it's really a prerequisite when you want to have a really nice molded petal. So the first thing that we need to do, 6 altogether. I'm just gliding my dowel rod here, and you can use whatever curling tools you have. So for me, the dowel rod really works great, like so. And the next thing we need to do is to create a bow. And our goal here is to create a perfect square, which means, you know, we need to have one here that we would check up to when we are going to move inward. So if you can see, the length here is perpendicular to the width of the base of one petal. So this is my method of creating, you know, a perfect square of the base, and it's not really using too much paper on it, and all the paper is all, you know, used together. So now we have a bow, and we need to replicate this bow by, wait, we don't really need to do that. All we need is to fold this one upward. You see this create an imaginary line here, like right at where the base started. So we're going to fold it upward like that, and flatten the base by pushing it downward. And see the way how I do it, and we are like, they are hugging each other, like one arm on top of the other, and then we are going to secure it. Keep holding it while it's not secure yet. And as the goal, you know, we have a perfect square base here, and we have now our first bud. Now the second part is just easy. We are just going to put some glue in here and place our bud, you know, right to where the imaginary line of the base and push it so the glue would stick. So let's do that. And then based on the line, we are just going to place our petal there and hug it into our bud. So to the other side, the same way. And push downward. And again, push the petal upward. And we are just continuing on making our bud. One second, I just need to cover my mat. And let's proceed. I was cutting, and you know, when you are cutting and you left the mat exposed on the air, you know, it would lose its grip. So I really need to cover it. So the same thing. Now we are going to do it on this side here. Alternate. So the same way, we are just, you know, making it sure that it's into the edge of our imaginary line. And hug it. And let's do this one more piece. And let's glue it. So that's the idea of, you know, why we need to curl it before putting it together. So it gives us an ease, you know, and a natural curl on our petal, not like it's a forced one and, you know, something that would really create a crest on it. So let's add two more. Make sure, by the way, that when you are doing this part, you are going to leave 4 pieces aside. So we are just doing 8 pieces for this bud, and then the remaining 4 pieces is the outer layer, which is gonna serve as the transitional petals. So the same thing, we'll just do it this side, like the open area. The same thing what we did before. And glue the sides. Again, last piece. Glue the sides. So now we have a really pretty bud. Now it's time for us to do our transitional petal. So this would serve as, you know, like the transition of the petal from the bud towards our outer layer. By the way, if you can see this petal, you know, this side, the way how I do it, the orientation is, you see this little tiny thing in here, and it's lower, like it's higher in this part and lower in this side. This lower, or this little thing here, should be on your left side. So all four layers of them. So the same thing with the bud. So I work on it thinking that this is in this lower area, it's on my left. So again, let's use a curler and 2 at a time. Using a smaller dowel rod, we are going to curl the sides outward. So curling it outward would give a very subtle look, and it would give, you know, a nice transition effect from your bud to your outer petals. So again, we are going to repeat the same thing. So, but right now, instead of keeping it all the way to the edge, like give it, you know, a little extra, in the sense that when you fold it upward, you know, it's either, you know, balanced to your bud, or you can even go farther, like so. So it would look like, you know, the bud is hidden down. So however you like. So it's, you know, whatever you prefer. I'm sure it's gonna work out nice. So I'm just making or creating a little extra and folding it upright. And before, with the bud, we are gluing it on this side here. On the transitional petal, we are gluing it, you know, on the base area, like here. So and let's do the other side. Again, make sure that your placement of petals is the same as the other petals, so it would not look awkward. So now our rosebud is starting to, you know, have a nice form on it. So continuing gluing the sides. And on the other side. So now we have our bud. Now it's time for us to work on into our outer petals. So again, because we are making a large rose, let's set our bud aside. We are making a large rose. We're using the 5 inches large round base. So let's start with the large petal. So again, the orientation, the lower side of the petal is on your left. So let's cut all 6 of it a slit, not too deep, because we wanted this petal to, you know, look upright. So we are not going to, you know, make a deep slit. And then we are going to press, you know, right in the continuation of the slit, like press it to create a little fold on it. It will give you a nice texture. So the next thing we are doing is getting 3 petals at a time and curling the side. I know it's additional work, but curling it, we are not curling the fold, okay? We are just curling like the half side of it. I know it's additional work, but you know, it really makes a difference. So now that we are, you know, done with curling it with our smaller dowel rod, because this is a large petal, we're using a larger dowel rod and curling the first layer both outward. Like so. So set that aside, and again do the same thing with the 3 remaining petals. And again curling it outward for the first layer, both sides curled outward. And set it aside. Now let's go to our second layer. In the second layer, our slit should be more shallow than the first one, like so. And let's continue, you know, it with a fold, not all the way, but you know, like leaving an inch here, and then again using a smaller 3 at a time. I'm in hurry. Using a smaller dowel rod, we're curling the side, not curling the fold, just the side of the fold. And again, using the same dowel rod, we're curling the left side outward and the other side inward, like so. So okay, so again, one side outward, one side inward. Set it aside. Now to our third layer. Our third layer, the slit should be narrower than the second. And again, create a little, you know, like a fold. And using a smaller dowel rod, we're curling our petal petals. And then the same thing with the second, using the same tool, the smaller curler, one side outward and one side inward. And down to our last three on this layer, one side outward and one side inward. So our fourth and last layer to make a rose, the slit should be just shallow. So again, 6 at a time, making a fold all the way, 1, 2, 3, and curling it. And in this case, because this is the transition from the outer layer to our bud, we are going to curl the sides using a smaller dowel rod. We are curling our sides, you know, inward, both inward. So let's keep this one aside. Now let's start to glue the flap together. So first thing that I wanna do is to determine, you know, how close I want, you know, my flaps to be glued together. So that should be about right. So it's like half of the flap, like so. And then I'm gonna start gluing it in a uniform manner to, again, making it sure that it's more upright. It's not flat, but it's a little bit upright. That's why we only have like 2.5 inches of slit in our large petal. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So after gluing the first layer, in this particular flower design, I want to glue this first into our base, so that, you know, as we go inward, we would know how we are going to glue the flaps of our remaining layers. So again, if you are watching my previous video tutorials, I only glue half and keep the other half of the base of the petal open, and the half that has the glue is on my left side, and making it sure that the entire part of the base gets into our round base. Moving into our second petal, we are going to glue it at the exact opposite of our first one. So now we can insert 2 petals in between. That's why we leave this one open. So trying to space it out evenly, and once you are satisfied, your fingers are still holding it in place. Slowly, the farther petal, stick some glue behind the base and secure it. So now that it's secure, we can let it go. So before we even glue this one, we are going to sneak a little glue also at the remaining exposed part of our other petal, and then we can sneak some glue here. So now we can, before securing this open part, again we are going to secure the other exposed area of this petal, and now we can close this. Moving on to our 2 remaining petals. So spacing it the best way we can. And secure it with glue. Sneak some glue. Secure some glue in here. Okay. And the remaining side should be glued together also. So now our first layer is finished. Now we can see, you know, how are we going to move inward. So as you can see, our base is pretty big, so it can certainly cover, you know, this exposed white area. So we need to make sure that when we put our petal, we are not going to go inward, but instead, you know, just enough to really let this area here open for now and move little by little, you know, up to our fourth layer, enough that, you know, we can still sneak this big rose. So now that I determine how am I going to glue my flaps on the second layer, I'm gonna glue it, you know, all 6 of them the same way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So again, I want to place this one into our flower before gluing the flaps of the 2 remaining layers. So the same way, I'm gluing half of it. And as I said earlier, we are not going to move inward because we still have 2 remaining layers, and we want to keep our center, you know, still have enough space on it. So 1, and then 2, and now that we know, you know, where are we going to sneak our petals in between the 2 petals of the previous layers, we don't need to do the same way as what we did on the first layer. So we can just sneak it in and secure the open part, and again sneak in and secure the open part. So we cannot secure this one yet because we still have petals to sneak in between. And here, secure the open part, and last petal for this layer. And let's secure the open part of the base in this layer. So now we have our second layer. I believe we can now move inward with our petal. So I'm determining, you know, the way how I determine on where to glue the flap is when I place it in here, I make sure that the petal is more upright than the previous one. So that's how it is. So I'm gluing it this way. One, two, three, 4, 5, and 6. So again, we're sticking it into our flower, and this time in our third layer, the way how I'm going to glue it is, you know, I'm moving inward. I feel confident now to move inward. I think we'll have enough space to move inward. So 1, 2. Again, you know, the way how I place my petals, it's in between the 2 previous petals on the previous layers. So 3, 4, 5, 5 and 6. So now we can secure those exposed parts. It would also hold, you know, it's necessary to hold the petal in an upright shape. And if you need to press it and hold it, that's fine. So now our third layer is on. So we still have like a portion of our base that has the white spot on it. So that's when our fourth and final layer would come. So let me determine first, how am I going to glue the flaps on this? Okay, so should be like this, and I'll do the same, all 6 of them. Again, the way how I determine how I glue my flap is based on, you know, how upright I want my petal would be. So the lesser portion it is, the flatter your petal will be. But if you will glue it deeper, the more upright your petal gets. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we are gluing our petals, the fourth layer, into our base. So as you can see, you know, so from a flatter fourth layer, and then there's the second layer, more upright. The third layer is more upright than the second, and the fourth layer is really upright. So just gluing it the same way as we did in the previous petals. And I know it's getting tight on the inner part, and that's okay. We don't need to secure the loose ends, because we're going to press it with our rosebud center anyway. So see what I am talking about. This curling inward of this layer in this petal design would really give a smooth transition from the outer petals to the bud, and the outer curl also of the bud would give a good transition to our outer petals. So now we can place our bud. See how nice it is? But one trick I've learned, we need to trim the side. You know, it's very, very boxy. So don't be afraid to trim the edges. It would not damage your bud. You would not see it anyway. Plus, it would give you a more smooth placement of your bud to your flower. So just enough that it would become more, you know, more circular rather than so if you can see, you really don't have to worry because your glue is on the inner part. So now your base is more circular than being boxy. You then have a nice and easier time placing your bud into your rose. So it also just come like an aha moment for me yesterday, because before some of my roses doesn't really look nice because of the box base of the rosebud center. Hold it in a good number of seconds. But now I know the trick that you just have to trim the sides, and that's okay. See, you don't even notice the trim on your bud anyway. So there you have it, ladies and ladies. And let's check how big this flower is. So it's like an 18 inches flower using 18 sheets of paper. So not bad at all if you are aiming for, you know, larger and more flatter rose design. Actually, I love this design. I really love it. The way how the curls on the petal itself. I didn't even know that this petal would really turn out so nice. So thank you so much. Again, I will list this one after I post the tutorial. So I hope you guys like this, and thank you for the love and support. Until next time, once again, I'm going to show you how this beautiful flower looks like. Thank you so much. Bye.